Hey folks, welcome back to NC State Dendrology. In this lesson we'll be talking about shadbush or sarvis. This is our juneberry. It has many common names. This is in the Amelanchier genus. This genus is very notorious for being very difficult to identify between species when it's not in flower. Typically botanists will look to the flowers for the specific traits that will help you differentiate one species to another. But then they've also discovered that these species integrate between each other. So there's kind of a lot of controversy on how many different species of there are in North Carolina or North America in general. And so in this class, we're just going to be teaching it to genus. So to identify our juneberry, you're going to typically see it as a small tree, sometimes as a shrub, depending on the species. Some exist on shrubs and some exist as small trees. When you see it in cultivation, as it is here on campus, you'll often see it with many different stems on the plant. But out in nature, you'll typically see it as a one-stemmed tree or a multi-stemmed shrub. As we get closer to looking into this plant, you're going to want to look at those leaves on it. You're going to see that they're alternately arranged, and because they are alternately arranged, that helps eliminate a lot of our oppositely arranged species. You're also going to want to look at the leaf itself. So let me see if I can pull that up close to you. So you look at this leaf. You can see that it is relatively elliptical in shape. It has that pointed tip and often this cordate base. It has a little bit of a butt on that leaf, and that can help you identify it. Also, you're going to be looking at that edge. So I notice on this leaf pretty often that it has a very finely toothed margin, and that toothing is very even around the entire edge of that leaf. And that's something that's very distinctive to me when I'm looking at these leaves, is how small those teeth are and how they stay the same size from end to end of that margin. Other than the leaves, which are kind of ordinary looking leaves, you're also going to look at the bark, so I'll get you a little bit closer to that. The bark of Amelanchier is kind of this typical gray color, but you can also see as these darker ridges of vertical lines all the way along there. So those dark vertical fissures all along the bark is something that is typical of Amelanchier, especially Amelanchier arborea, which is one of the species of Amelanchier we find in the Piedmont. So you're going to look for that gray bark with those darker fissures that go vertically along the plant. In general, one of the most important things about this plant are its fruits. So in the early spring, it's going to have these white flowers with 5 petals. Remember, this is in the Rosaceae family, and 5 petals on those flowers is very typical of that family. Once it has the 5 petal flowers, they'll pollinate between the 2 of them, and then once they're fertilized, they'll develop fruits. And the fruits of these plants are pomes. There'd be a dark purple pome that you'll see in the spring. They look like little berries, but they are botanically pomes, which is only found in the Rosaceae family. Those pomes are very fond of lots of songbirds, and humans and squirrels are very fond of those. If you're ever lucky enough to stumble upon this plant in the spring, try one of the pomes. They're very delicious. It's one of the things that people typically like about this plant. Another thing about this plant is that it's one of the first species to flower in the spring. One of its common names that you'll find is called serviceberry. And the reason it's called serviceberry is back in the olden days when you had to bury people without use of anything other than a shovel, people would wait until the thaw in spring in order to bury the dead that happened over the winter. And so one of the things that people would look for would be the flowers of serviceberry. And they knew that the moment that you saw those flowers that you could actually finally bury your dead relatives, because the ground would be thawed enough for you to do so. And you'd hold the service, the funeral service. So serviceberry, juneberry, because that's where about when the fruits will show up, is in June, and sarvis. But yeah, that is our juneberry, Amelanchier.